In the early years of the Cold War, the United States believed it was facing an invisible enemy. Not tanks, not missiles, the human mind. Rumors spread through Washington that communist regimes had discovered ways to control thoughts, erase memories, and turn people into living weapons. The CIA feared one thing above all else. What if America was already losing a war it couldn't see? So they launched a secret program. No oversight, no consent, no limits. It was called mkultra, and it destroyed lives. In the 1950s, reports began circulating about American prisoners of war in Korea. Some returned home, changed. They praised communism. They denounced the United States. Some refused to return at all. The CIA believed these men had been brainwashed. At the same time, Soviet and Chinese propaganda claimed they had perfected psychological manipulation, mind control. Whether those claims were real didn't matter. Fear was enough. In 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles approved a top-secret project with one goal: investigate the potential of mind control for interrogation and behavior modification. The project was given a neutral name: mkultra. mkultra wasn't a single experiment. It was a sprawling network of 149 separate subprojects spread across the United States and Canada. They took place in universities, hospitals, military bases, and even prisons. Many of the researchers involved didn't even know they were working for the CIA. The methods were extreme. Subjects were given powerful hallucinogens like LSD, often without their knowledge or consent. Some were dosed repeatedly for weeks, even months, their minds pushed to the breaking point. Others were subjected to a horrifying array of techniques: sensory deprivation, where they were cut off from all sight, and sound, deep hypnosis, high-voltage electroshock therapy, and prolonged sleep deprivation. They endured psychological torture designed to dismantle their personalities. The goal wasn't therapy. It was control. Could the CIA erase a person's memories? Could they implant false ones? Could they break someone down completely and then rebuild them into something else? No one stopped to ask if they should. They only asked if they could. Many of the victims never knew they were part of an experiment. They were college students told they were testing new medications, prisoners offered reduced sentences for their cooperation, and mental patients used as convenient, silent volunteers. One of the most infamous cases involved Frank Olson, a US Army scientist who was working with biological weapons. In 1953, during a work retreat, CIA officials secretly slipped LSD into his drink. In the days that followed, Olson became severely paranoid and depressed. He was terrified that something had broken inside his mind, that he was losing his grip on reality. 9 days later, he fell from a 13th-story hotel window in New York City. The CIA quickly ruled it a suicide. But decades later, evidence emerged suggesting something far darker had occurred. To this day, the true circumstances surrounding Frank Olson's death remain unresolved. Some mkultra experiments crossed the line from clandestine science into outright absurdity and cruelty. In San Francisco and New York, the CIA set up safe houses, renting apartments and furnishing them like normal homes. They hired prostitutes to lure unsuspecting men inside. Once there, the men were given LSD and other drugs without their knowledge. Behind one-way mirrors, CIA agents watched and took notes as the subjects panicked, hallucinated, and completely lost control of themselves. This program was given the code name Operation Midnight Climax. There were no medical professionals present to intervene. No consent forms were ever signed. And there was absolutely no follow-up care for the men whose minds had been tampered with. It was just observation. And, for some agents, amusement. Years later, one declassified CIA document casually described these horrific experiments as informative. By the early 1970s, mkultra was becoming dangerous, not scientifically, but politically. The risk of exposure was growing. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms gave a simple order: destroy the evidence. The majority of mkultra files were shredded, burned, and erased from history. But he didn't get all of them. In 1975, the US Senate launched the Church Committee to investigate widespread abuses by American intelligence agencies. What they uncovered shocked the public. They found proof of illegal human experimentation, unethical science, and zero accountability. In the aftermath, President Gerald Ford issued a formal apology to the victims and their families. Some families received financial settlements, but not a single person went to prison for what they had done. mkultra officially ended, but the questions didn't. How much information was destroyed that we'll never know? How many victims were never identified, their suffering never acknowledged? How many of these mind-altering techniques quietly evolved into new programs instead of disappearing? The program proved one thing beyond any doubt. When fear is allowed to override ethics, even democratic nations can cross lines they can never uncross. mkultra wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was real. It was funded by the US government. And it was hidden from the American people for decades. The Cold War is over, but the scars of what was done in its shadows remain. This wasn't science fiction. This wasn't paranoia. This was history.